Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. This is Ed Smith with Agile Fleet, and facilitating the call today. I want to thank you for joining the call, and many thanks to Sharon Sutton, who set this up for us and kind of created this venue. Sharon does quite a bit for our company as well as for the fleet industry by helping us communicate information out to you and to collect information from you that we can share with others. And many thanks to the guest speakers that we have today. I'll introduce them in a few minutes. So the topic of today, or the focus, is on sharing of vehicles in the social services setting. So quite often the kind of the mechanism or the thing that's in between those that work in your organization and those that you serve are having access to a vehicle, and a properly equipped vehicle. Maybe it's handicap accessible or needs child seats or some other features in it. And really, to do your job, you don't want it to be a distraction to have to think about how are you going to get that vehicle. Quite often we know from our experience in providing services to the social service community is that money's tight, so everybody doesn't get their own vehicle. So sharing is a way that can really accommodate the needs of the organization and the people that they serve. And we do find there are a lot of nuances or unique things about the social services setting that are worth discussing in a venue like this. So on the call, we know that we have organizations representing government, and both private sector, public sector. There are government of all shapes and sizes, it looks like, from state all the way down to local. And we've got people in the U.S. and even abroad joining us today. So even if you're not in social services, almost all the same concepts apply. Very fortunate to have Dave and Tony joining us today to kind of give their experiences in providing services for their environments. Dave Hoffmeister is from the state of Michigan, and Dave has a very large organization who can do as many as about 800 vehicle reservations per day across the state. Whereas Tony's environment is much smaller. They're serving a small county in Maryland. They do about 15 vehicles, generally around 20 reservations per day. So we will have a perspective from both a very large organization and a small, and I think you'll see the benefits of the sharing are rather significant in both environments. So with that said, our agenda is really to talk about the challenges, the solutions that we have to offer, and then really I want to jump in and try to get as quick to Dave and to Tony just as quick as we can. And we'll wrap up by just talking about how you can get started in sharing in your environment if you're not already doing so. So first of all, the challenges that we see are quite common. So quite often there's not enough money for everybody to have their own vehicle. Therefore, there's a requirement to either share vehicles or come up with vehicles from some other source. Very common. Scheduling or coordination of vehicles amongst the staff. So if you do share today, it's very time consuming, labor intensive. I was dealing with an organization last week where when the primary scheduler was out, the CFO of the organization would do the coordination and scheduling. So just that's the last thing they need to be doing. Limited staff to manage the vehicles. Unpredictable needs for vehicles. It's not uncommon for a lot of organizations to get a call at night from maybe police on the side of the road, or someone needs to come pick up children. So you don't always know those types of things are going to happen. Something that's unique about social service environments is quite often there's a need to have a non-branded vehicle go to a home visit. So you can't necessarily just take any county or state vehicle and go on a home visit because it will create the wrong impression. You don't want it to have that particular image pulling up in front of a citizen's home. After hours access to vehicles when there might not be other people in the building. Safety of drivers, knowing where they are, particularly in rural areas. The needs to have things like car seats and handicap accessibility. Charging back to departments, or sometimes things can be billed back to the state or to some other agencies. Visibility with respect to hoarding. So if you do share vehicles, you want to know exactly that when people are scheduling a vehicle that they're actually using it for that full duration. They're not just grabbing onto it. And then lastly, managing things like vehicle maintenance, fuel levels, and cleanliness. So the latter is not necessarily a reservation capability, but it's something that's a real challenge in many social services environments. So one of the things we come across quite often, a question we get quite often is, if I'm having all of these challenges managing my own fleet of vehicles, should we just allow everybody to use their own personal vehicle? So it's a legitimate question, and it might be, in some environments, it might make a lot of sense. But you kind of need to ask yourself, do all your workers have access to a vehicle? And are they all safe and clean and portray the image that you would like them to have for your organization? Is the insurance going to properly cover both your employee as well as any others that might get into the vehicle? And is it more cost effective? So when Dave speaks at the state of Michigan, he'll show you a rather clever way that he uses to lower costs in his environment. He shows people what's the cost of using one of my vehicles versus a personal vehicle versus a state vehicle. And the argument for using a state vehicle in his case is quite compelling. And then there also are health concerns about using a personal vehicle. So there are legitimate things that happen where someone who might get in your vehicle has some health issues, and you wouldn't want that contamination or whatever else may be the case to get into a personal vehicle. So the question, should we use a personal vehicle? Quite often the case is no, but the bottom line is the answer is, or the question, answer is going to lie in, what does your policy say? So you should have a policy if you are going to allow personal use of vehicles. So the bottom line is, whether you use personal or shared vehicles, you need a solution that solves your challenges. And the nice thing that we have going on today, as I alluded to, is Dave's going to talk about a very large implementation of sharing. Tony's going to talk about a little bit smaller, and you'll hear about the benefits that both of them get from the solution. So before we jump into the here and there stories, I wanted to kind of just give you an overview of the automation capability. So my perspective is from the solution that we've built and we sell. That doesn't mean there aren't other solutions out there. So we're not trying to overtly push our solution, but we want you to understand the benefits of a solution, and ours just happens to be the context that we're speaking from. So having the automation capability is going to let you right-size your fleet. So it's going to let you get the most out of the vehicles you have and give you all the metrics you need to understand that. It's going to take the burden off of your fleet staff. So if the main scheduler is not there, the CFO doesn't have to take over. A system can do that for you. It's going to really help you make sure you optimize the composition of your fleet. So you'll have all the metrics to know, I need 2 more handicap accessible vans, and I could probably get rid of those 2 pickup trucks that I have. We can help you avoid use of personal vehicles by offering an easy solution to schedule vehicles and provide 24/7 access. We're going to communicate and enforce policies, which is another great way to really lower the cost of operating your fleet. And at the end of the day, we're going to improve customer service, and we're going to have the metrics to show you that your drivers are going to get a higher quality of product and services from you while doing their job. So for starters, I figure what I do is talk about what a fleet management information system needs to have in order to really share effectively. One of the main components you need to have is a database of your vehicles, right? So if you're going to share vehicles as a key ingredient, and then all the rules about how particular vehicles can be used. So let's assume you were limited in the number of handicap accessible vehicles. You probably want something in there that says, let's just hand those out for the people that need that, and let's let the other ones not be. Let's let the other ones be used when you don't need that accessibility. So you need a database of your vehicles. You need to have a list of your drivers and what they're allowed to do in your system. So it may be very common to have a bunch of your vehicles that are unbranded in a fleet system for your social services settings. But right next to that in the exact same system, you might even have something like an emergency response vehicle that's shared. So you should have your drivers in the system, as well as some way of telling what vehicles those drivers are allowed to have access to. So, and then there's other things such as hosting is a very common thing. So it's usually cloud-based solutions are the easiest to implement and maintain these days. And then the whole suite of tools to communicate and enforce policy and to give you reports and things like that. So at the core of your product, we call it the center of our product, or the FleetCommander engine in our case. You need to have that: drivers, vehicles, hosting, reporting, and everything like that. Then the key thing you would use for sharing is a motor pool or vehicle sharing component to whatever system. And then you may or may not have an automated key controls component. So whatever you do, those are the main components. If you decided you needed GPS, Tony will speak to that. Or if you needed to add maintenance capabilities, you could do that as well. So you could add those capabilities on top of this system. If you've never seen it before, a reservation system is quite often a website. This happens to be a snapshot of the website that Tony uses in his environment. So it would be accessed through a URL like Tony's dhr.agilefleet.com. So you just hit it by a standard browser, and your users will come in to make a reservation or look at your policies or look at their schedule. Whatever you need them to do, they would interact with your main system here. And then on the administrative side, there are a lot of functions that, in this case, Tony uses to manage his vehicles and his drivers. So pretty much everything about this site can be customized to communicate information to the drivers, as well as to enforce different rules that you might have relative to how fleet vehicles can be used. So it's a website. So what does that website need to do in order to share? So for those that are on the call that kind of come from a pure fleet management or fleet maintenance history, some of this concept is new, having my drivers interact with my fleet management system. So in fact, the first thing is your drivers should interact with the system to get the biggest benefit out of it. And then in order to share vehicles, you need to do three things and kind of do those very well. One is to schedule or coordinate the use of a vehicle. So whether I know a week or two or three in advance that I need to use a vehicle, or if I'm going to just grab one at the last minute because I just got a call to pick up a child, I need to let people know that I need that vehicle or when I'm going to be back with that vehicle. So we'll talk about how do you schedule and coordinate use of a vehicle. The next thing you need to do is get the keys in the hands of the driver and get them back. Give them the ability to drive that car. And then finally, you need reporting to make sense of all of this. So maybe the reporting is utilization metrics, or it's a report that shows how much each department is using my vehicles, or it might be even bills that are going to be sent to an outside organization or to your departments. If you can tackle those three things, we always like to kind of break the concept of sharing down into those three components. It helps people kind of wrap their head around what they need to do. And then also, if you are out looking for different sharing alternatives, it's a good way to compare one alternative to the other. So how flexible are they in each of these areas? Okay, so on scheduling, a lot of times people think it's just a reservation form where maybe in advance I go online and I ask for a vehicle. I say, when do I need it? What type of vehicle do I need? And maybe I provide some additional contact information. I can certainly do that in our system through a reservation form. That works just fine. So a form in advance is one way I have to ask for use of a vehicle. Another way I can ask for a vehicle in a solution like ours, we do have an automated key box and with it a kiosk. And so if I don't have a reservation in advance and I need one, I just walk up to it. And if I need a van, I click on a picture of a van, and it will go through the process of making sure it knows who I am and giving me access only to those types of vehicles that I need. So whether I knew it in advance and I made a reservation or I knew it last minute, you should have the capability to accommodate whatever your situation needs. And then also there may be administrative tools where if you still wanted to allow, say, a department manager to call you up and ask you to make a reservation for them, obviously you should have access to those tools as well. So Dave and Tony will get into how they use these capabilities. The next thing you need to do after you've got the system behind the scenes will help out and can completely automate the process of assigning vehicles, approving requests, emailing back the driver to let them know they've got a vehicle reserved. Or there's also administrative tools for the staff to do that manually. But the next step you have to do to share effectively is to dispatch. So get the keys in their hands and get them back. So if you have staffed locations, you may very well just have a person there. We have all the tools to dashboards, for example, that can anticipate who all the people are that are supposed to come pick up vehicles today in order. All we got to do is click on a button and check them out. And then when they return, they click on a button and check them back in. So we do have nice capabilities for staff locations to use it. Also, we have the capability to dispatch out in a fully automated way. So you walk up to a kiosk and you say, I'm here to check out. So I click on a checkout button. I have to sign in. And the key box will open up and give me just the key that I'm allowed to have access to. And then when I come back in, I return it. And nice thing about it is it gave me the car when I needed it, and I returned it when I was done with it. But by virtue of the fact that any of these methods are also capturing the start and end times that we use for reporting purposes. And then the last method that we have a third method incorporated into our system. It's a kiosk only. Don't be enamored and think that you have to have a stand-up kiosk like that. You can use an old laptop computer or a desktop computer, and we can give it the kiosk experience just by a little piece of software we install on it. But what that solution does is basically gives you the capability to basically replace paper logs, and it gives you just a checkout interface and a check-in interface. So at least you're capturing those transactions as vehicles come and go. So in some departments, for example, if you want them to share, give them that kiosk type experience, and maybe the keys are just sitting on a hook right next to that computer. So regardless of which one of these methods you use to hand out keys and collect keys, all of the data is rolling into the same system in the back end, and it's going to give you access to all the reports and billing that you need to have. So here's just a picture of the user interface and shows you how easy it is to check out a vehicle. And they come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, and the keys can be in garages, they can be inside, they can be outside, a lot of different environments. So the reports, the bottom line is the reports should give you the information you need to make smart decisions about your organization. So they should clearly show how many vehicles do you have and how many did you actually use. And even should provide some accountability into, say, vehicles that are out of service for maintenance, how many were actually used in a day, how many vehicles sat idle. And you should be able to drill into all of the different types of utilization data that you have to really see what's going on. So utilization by day, so I can look at it day by day. So I can see that I've got active vehicles, I've got a certain number of them in use, and I've gotten certain utilization rates. So that should be real clear to you. And one thing is, how often do I tell people I don't have the right vehicle for you? That should jump right out at you, and if you kind of drill into the data, you'll figure out exactly what type of vehicles were you short, so you can go tackle that problem. We can even look at utilization on a day-by-day basis, or I'm sorry, on a vehicle-by-vehicle basis, so we can see if there's any that are kind of sitting idle all the time. And then there's lots of other different types of reports that come along with a fleet management information system. So many other capabilities are kind of related to sharing a vehicle, such as communicating, enforcing policy, maybe collecting mileage from vehicles that aren't necessarily shared so well, to scheduling maintenance and things like that. So there are many other related features that are in a fleet management information system that you should consider while you're looking at sharing. But today we're going to focus mostly on the sharing side of things. And so with that, like I said, we're going to start with the larger environment and switch things over to Dave and let him talk about how he uses it, particularly relative to social services across the state of Michigan. So Dave, thanks again for joining us, and hopefully you can share your experiences and how things work there in the state. And don't assume any knowledge. If people assume zero knowledge, like people maybe have never shared before, they're interested in your perspective, maybe even about what it took to implement and how it was received by your drivers. Have at it.
Thanks, Ed. So again, my name is Dave Hoffmeister. I'm the Consulting Services and Motor Pool Operations Manager for the state of Michigan. And I'm very excited to talk about this afternoon. So thank you for the opportunity. So with Michigan, the MDHHS, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, is one of our key customers. I'm with the Department of Management and Budget, so we play a key role in providing the vehicles to DHHS. Some of the DHHS offices have permanently assigned vehicles, and then they also go to now to motor pools. So a little background on how this really started with us and our relationship with the Health and Human Services. So we have 7 managed motor pools located throughout the state. DTMB owns those vehicles that are in the pool, and any department in those areas can use those vehicles, and we use the FleetCommander system. Of those 7, 5 of them are completely unmanned. We don't have staff there for maintenance and for washing the vehicles. We just have relationships set up with outside vendors to do that. Everything is controlled through our 2 central offices located in Lansing, Michigan. The local county in Lansing had some of their drivers using it, and they came to us and said, man, this would be really neat to have in our office for our smaller pools of the vehicles that that office is assigned to. And we said, well, let's take a look and see what we can do. We talked to Ed and Agile team and said, hey, we got this interest. This is something we can do. And sure enough, we started with 1 county of the 83 in Michigan, and over the last 4 years, it's now grown to 7 counties. We've got 4 more counties lined up for the software. We can only do 1 at a time, and all of them are raving about the successes and how much easier it is. So every day, just about we're receiving calls from counties saying, "Hey, we're interested in this. Can you put us in line?" So our goal is to have all 83 county DHHS offices managing their individual pools with the same system. Now, they're not using the same full-blown system that we are using with the kiosk and the automated key boxes. As Ed said earlier, you can set up a dedicated computer and download the software for just the kiosk and then manage the keys either through administrative staff or their own key box or file folders or however. So
hey, Dave,
yes.
Dave, this is Ed. Could you just kind of talk about what's the pacing item about why you were at 7 counties today and what it's going to take to get to 83? Is that a logistical issue? Is it a technology issue, or what will make it? What's taking it to grow over time?
It's a little bit of both. It's mostly limited staff that I have. So we all have other full-time jobs. The FleetCommander pretty much runs the motor pool system for us. We do, like I said, in the central offices in Lansing, we have a total of about 6 people that monitor the dashboards and work on day-to-day customer service and helping the counties with questions and helping drivers with questions. So setting up the motor pools is more of a staffing issue with us. We can do probably on probably 4 or 5 counties a year. We did have a little bit of a stoppage last year because of some statewide computer turnover. We had a whole new accounting system changed over, and it pretty much halted all of our progress on that. But we're clicking pretty good now. We just opened a site a month ago. We're opening another one this month, and we got, like I said, 4 more after that, and we'll have those done by the end of the year.
Okay, great.
So in this slide, you can see, 2010 is when we actually started with the Agile FleetCommander system. But going back to 2013, statewide, for our 7 motor pools, we had about a little over 60,000 reservations, growing obviously each year to 2017 now, which is including our DHHS county offices. So over a year, over 95,000 motor pool reservations, averaging 265 a day. Our max in one day was 878. And as we add more counties, those numbers are obviously going to go way up. So this snapshot is of our FleetCommander site. Like Ed said, you can customize it to how you want. We like to communicate with the drivers, again, especially since our 5 that are completely unmanned, we try to get information out to the drivers. So we just, put little reminders. Like right now, we've got a reminder, say, hey, school's back in session, watch out for school buses and kids. It's on the left-hand side. You can make reservations. One of the most important tabs over here is the policies. So we're very adamant about making sure our drivers know about the policies, especially new drivers. They may have been just kind of thrown into something and really never had a state vehicle before. So we want to make sure that policies are accessible everywhere. And again, at the bottom, we just sometimes share some safety info. So it's easy. Reservations are simple. Once the driver's done it a couple of times, they can basically log in and they can make a reservation within about 30 seconds. One of the important things on this slide, one of the things that I like best, especially with the Health and Human Services folks, is those bottom 2 squares that says destination and reason for travel. So those are free-flowing forms. You can type in whatever you want, as many characters as you want. And we tell, especially the drivers at Health and Human Services, if you're using a destination, put as much information as you can in there for a couple of reasons. Number one, for safety. If you're going to a home visit, put the address in there. That way, if you're not back when you're supposed to be back, for a safety standpoint, somebody knows where you're at. And if no one knows where you're at, they can at least access this and they can look at the history and they can say, okay, this is where the person was. Now we got to go check on them. And then reason for travel. Both of those are important for that reason and for historical data. 2 years from now, you may get called into a court case or something and say, where were you on this and this date? Then you can show, I was at this house or I was in this court session. So any information, the more information they can put in there, the better, again, for safety reasons and for historical data. Okay, so on the right-hand side is all of our motor pools. The ones that say DTMB next to it, again, those are the 7 managed that any state employee, they're centrally located in offices that have multiple departments. So we got people from natural resources, MDOT, all the different departments can use those vehicles. We have daily and hourly and per mile rates that we charge back to the customers that use those. The other ones, the ones in a red square, those are the county offices that we currently have using the system. And like I said, we've got more coming every day. And we also got Department of Environmental Quality people that also have in their local offices the minor version. So again, 20 motor pool sites, 7 fully automated, 5 of them unmanned. The remaining of them, again, the DEQ offices and the Health and Human Service offices have a dedicated kiosk, and then they've got a key control system. Each office kind of does their own thing on how they manage the keys. But the most important part is that they're using the system for the reservations. So it helps with the utilization. So the car that's been sitting there the longest is the one that's going to go out first. You can't handpick which vehicle you want. The system's just going to assign the vehicle that's sitting on, so you get proper utilization, which is really important. So if you've got some newer vehicles in your fleet and some older vehicles in your fleet, of course, the drivers are always going to try to get a way to get the newer vehicle, and the older ones sit there and never get any usage, and they never come out of the fleet. So this system prevents that from happening as long as all the rules are followed. The other thing that one of the big reasons why the DHHS county offices came to us about this is they were having a big problem with accountability of who's got keys. The driver would come in first thing in the morning, go to their staff and say, hey, I need a car today. give them a set of keys. They go back to their desk, put the keys in their pocket, put the keys in the drawer, sit there for 3 or 4 hours, maybe use the car for 15 or 20 minutes, go back, and then sit at their office again all day. In the meantime, other people need a vehicle. They go out and they say, hey, there's cars sitting out there, but no one's got any keys. So this system eliminates that. You'll as administrators, you'll know exactly who's got what car. So if someone says, hey, car so-and-so is sitting out there, they can figure out who checked it out and go to that person and say, hey, you're not using it, give it up. The other thing that it eliminated was the passing back and forth of keys. Again, no accountability. No one knew where the car was, or who had it, where that person was. So again, this system eliminates all of that. Administrators can keep on top of it. And that was the main reason why the Health and Human Services people came to us and said, we need a way to eliminate this, and this has done that.
All right. Hey, Dave, while you're talking, we got a question in through the chat that says, can you talk about how the counties, and basically across the whole state, how they did this whole function before you had a system to do it like this? So could you kind of just elaborate just a little bit on that, and then how you made that transition?
Sure. So we went into, before we open up any of the counties, open, what I mean is by installing the system, the first thing we do is I'll go in and I'll talk to the management and say, okay, why do you think you need this? So I want to get a background of what's going on. Are they having problems with hoarding? Are they having problems with passing back and forth of keys? No accountability. In most instances, it's just like I said, it's, they don't know who's got the keys. Every county is kind of having their own system. Some of them are doing like reservations through an email chain, or emailing an administrator. Some were using Outlook calendars, just putting their name on an Outlook calendar and saying when they need a vehicle. I went into a couple offices and they just had index cards and an index file, or sheets of paper on a file on the wall, and just as the cars came in and came out. But what they're finding out with that system is the car would go out once, maybe go out for 15 or 20 minutes, come back, and that car would never go back out again. They just kind of forgot about that car now and went on to the next car, went on to the next car. And again, with the system now is there's cars out there that'll go 4 or 5 trips in a day, where before it was doing one. And what we're finding now in some of the county offices, especially the ones who have been on it for about a year now, they're actually calling us and saying, you know what, I think we got too many cars, because everybody's getting a car, and we still got cars that are sitting there idle, not being used. We could probably trim it down by 1 or 2. We've got 2 county offices that are seriously considering giving back 2 or 3 of their vehicles. Okay, as Ed mentioned earlier, we do an analysis. What really sparked us on getting the motor pools and getting the reservation system is the amount of personal mileage that the state of Michigan was paying out on a yearly basis. So we started gathering quarterly all the personal mileage throughout the state, through every department, every employee, and how much that personal mileage is, how much is the state spending on personal mileage reimbursements. And then, so we'd give the departments a quarterly outlook of it and say, okay, here's what it is for first quarter, second quarter. And at the end of the fourth quarter, we send it a cumulative total and say, okay, here's what you paid for this fiscal year in personal mileage. And we took it one step further and said, okay, if you were to assign this person an assigned vehicle, assigned state vehicle, this is what the lease cost, the per mile insurance would cost for a vehicle for that employee versus what you paid in personal mileage, and we just put a yes or a no. Is there savings for the department? The savings, if it's a yes, just means it's cheaper for the department to assign them a vehicle. But we also do the same analysis for motor pool vehicles. If they're not quite as a frequent traveler, again, we go off the historical data from the year before, and we say, okay, if everything stays the same, this driver is going to drive X amount of miles. You're paying this person this amount in personal mileage. If they use a motor pool car every time they use a trip instead of personal mileage, this is the savings that's going to be for the department. So It's caused the departments to take a hard look at it and also really trim down the personal mileage. And we even put a policy in that basically now we got 2 personal mileage. We had a standard and the premium. And if there is a car available, but the employee chose not to use it, then they only get the standard, they can't get premium. And policy. So those who have fleets know keeping the drivers updated on policy is a struggle, especially if you're putting policy or handbooks in the glove box for drivers to, for drivers' information. So if you get a 6-year-old car, then the policy book in the glove box is 6 years old, and policies change quite often. So now we've come up with a few ideas to help spread the word on policy and keep drivers up to date. So we came up with these pictures. These are QR codes. The first one is about a 6x5 sticker that we put on the key boxes. And the drivers, just if they have a question about how to use the motor pool or different policies, they can just use their cell phone, and the QR code will go right to our policy page for our state drivers. The smaller one, about the size of the paperclip, is ones that we put on the keychain, and then we've also put the QR code on the envelopes that we put paperwork in the glove box. So when the driver scans this, then it'll tell them, answers the questions like, how do I get fuel? What do I do if I'm in an accident? What's my PIN number for fuel? Where do I get maintenance at? Just about any kind of question regarding policy will come up on that page. And it also gives them the number to our office and also our number for roadside assistance and for maintenance assistance. So again, the system that the Health and Human Services use and the reason why they went for them is it's eliminating the hoarding of keys. We know what was happening before. Like I said, drivers were grabbing the car, keeping the keys all day, and maybe use the car for 15 minutes that day. So now the drivers have confidence in the vehicles are available. They've noticed the difference. Just about every one of our county offices that has a system is raving about it, and that's why it's growing so much, because the other counties are like, okay, what's this you're talking about? And they tell them about it, they call us, we do the presentation, and next thing we know, we're putting them in line to get the same system. Eliminating the passing of keys to colleagues. Again, drivers have easy access to keys, and it's also helped enforce the rules of returning the vehicles clean and fueled. When they're checked in, you got to put down how much fuel is in there. Different offices have different policies on, and most of them say you got to return it with at least 3/4 of a tank of gas. But it also holds accountability for drivers keeping the vehicle clean. So if the vehicle's not clean, the next driver can make a comment on there. The comment will get forwarded to the administrators. The administrators can look who had the vehicle before and say, hey, you got reported that you turned the vehicle back dirty. We don't accept that. Don't let something like that happen again. It's definitely, like I said, one of the biggest improvements we've had is in personal vehicle reimbursement, mileage reimbursement, no personal use of fleet vehicles, and then driver's license management. So now, just a little note on this one, we have come up with a policy now that anybody who's in the FleetCommander system using motor pools, one of the fields you have to fill out when you register is your driver's license number. So now we take that driver's license number. We have a monthly subscription with the Secretary of State here, and their license is run through the system. If there's any kind of discretion, we don't look at points, we don't look at accidents or anything like that. It just simply tells us the driver's license is valid or it's not valid. If it's not valid, we disable them from the system. They can't use the motor pool until they satisfy whatever's going on with the license to make it valid again. Once it's valid, they show us proof, and then they're again enabled in the system. So that makes sure that we don't have anybody who's not supposed to be driving a vehicle, they won't be driving a vehicle. It's helping with the utilization thresholds, and it's letting state employees use the lowest cost option, whether a personal vehicle, motor pool vehicle. It's keeping away from the personal mileage, which is the most expensive reimbursement option.
Excellent. Well, Dave, that was a really good overview. You guys are absolutely getting good value out of the system, and you're using it well. The question about how did you do things before, one thing I remember is at times there were keys missing and vehicles missing, and the only way to track them down, they would send the email to every single state employee that would say, if we find you in this vehicle, we're going to arrest you for theft. And that's a lack of accountability you had when things just got a little bit out of control. So things are very different now. You got a really good handle on that. So, all right, we may take some questions at the end here, time permitting.
Sure.
But thanks again. I wanted to jump in and give Tony to give a perspective on a smaller fleet. Interesting thing is the state of Maryland, Charles County, absolutely has found value in the system, as well as some one or two other counties now. So they've been kind of implementing their own versions of our solution in different counties as opposed to a statewide solution. So I would imagine over time they'll see some merit in maybe going to a statewide system. But for now, Charles County was the innovator in Maryland and is getting a lot of value out of it. So with that said, I'll hand it over to you, Tony, and let you kind of give an overview of the county and how you use the system.
Sure. I'm Tony Sullivan. I am the procurement officer at Charles County, Maryland Department of Social Services. We do have a fleet of about 15 cars that supports a staff of about 120 social worker, case workers, and administrators. We cover a fairly large county. We have more or less just small vehicles for getting around town. We do have minivans in our fleet. Primarily, they're used for folks to do home visits. We have a lot of activity during the evening for special events. We do get called out late at night. So we have a lot of folks, a lot of turnover after hours, actually, with folks needing cars and requesting support. Primarily, we use this system because we're very short manned and staffed here at this location. And previous to getting this system, and we got this system around 2014, we were just using paper documents to sign out the vehicles on, and we had an individual who actually handed out the car keys. But of course, when we had requests or situations in the evening, that became an issue, and then the normal things would happen, keys being lost and things like that. Right now, this system, the Agile Fleet system, has really helped us to control that, helped us to justify the fleet that we have and manage our cost. The system is pretty simple. It works very easily. All our staff initially have to take a state driving course. Once they complete the course, they're given a certificate. They provide it to the manager, who is Ivan Gray. He's sitting here with me just in case I get a little off track. And then they're entered into the system and given a PIN. Of course, all our policies and everything are online in the system, so people can stay up to date on that. And if we need to change anything, we normally can do that and get that information out pretty quickly to them, so everybody can stay aware of what the policies are. We have primarily used this system to just reduce our cost and for its safety features. We feel that the main thing in this product that we really like is the GPS system, and then the tracking for the maintenance, and then of course the security of managing the keys and the asset. Before we had this system, since we work in an area that has a large rural area, at one point we had an individual get lost, and it was a new staff member, and they did not know where they were. They're out in the rural area, and there were no markers or anything around. So they were calling back, and we literally had to send folks out to find them. The GPS feature on this system really negates that. As I said, we use the key box system. It's a real simple system to check in and check out on. Dave spoke about that earlier. The whole thing with the GPS, you're always able to locate folks any time of day, and we primarily use it as a safety feature. We're not looking at this system to penalize anybody or play Big Brother. We just wanted that safety feature on there just in case somebody breaks down so we can get to them and attend to their needs as quickly as possible.
Tony, this is Ed. There's a picture of it on the screen of your key box. It's a little bit different than the kind that I guess Dave may have the exact same type, but can you describe, like if I was I knew I was going on a visit this afternoon, how I would request a vehicle, and then what would I do when I walk up to your key box? Because I think you've chosen to put your own PC there to save some cost, and then you just put it next to our key box, and it does all the work for you. But what would a typical person do to interact with that system?
Well, typically, everybody has access to the system. Of course, they can log in from their own computer and make a reservation. And Dave spoke about that earlier. When it comes time to actually check out the vehicle, they will come to the standalone station, as you see in the picture. And then you could go into checkout, as was shown earlier, punch in your code, and then at that point, once you punch into the computer system, your reservation number, punch in your code at the box. I'm sorry, let me back up that again. Once you go into the system to pick up your car, you will log in, and then the system will give you 30 to 45 seconds to move over to the key box where you would actually punch in your code. Is that how it works, Ivan? I'm sorry. Ivan will explain it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ivan Gray. I'm actually the fleet coordinator. Okay, every social worker, every worker here has a shortcut on their computer. They can go in at any time and set a reservation, which will come back also to my computer, which has a central box for it. At the time, they can also put in a request for a certain vehicle if they need, or if they transport or transportation or moving somebody, some couples or something like that, or a home visit. That gives me the opportunity to look and see what vehicles we have. Since we have different types of vehicles, I can also switch. The computer will automatically give them a car, but I can also change if they need a car to support what they're doing. I can manually change their car for them. Then they will go to the key box. They'll put in their password and code. The reservation would pop up. They will confirm that's the reservation and the vehicle that they want to use. They will click on accept. They get 45 seconds to open the key box. Once they open the key box, the only green light on is the the key that they get. The rest of the keys are locked. That's the only key that's unlocked. You can always tell which is your key because there's a green light to let you know this is your key to the system. Same in with check-in. You come back in, you click check-in. You have 45 seconds to open the door, put the key back in, and the gas card, both is attached to that. There's a slot for the gas card. They both go back into the key box, close the door, and basically that's it on far as like getting their keys and so forth. But one of the main advantages that we use a lot for Agile is the state. Actually DHR, the state, they have a quota. They would like for each car to have 833 miles per month. Because we're short on cars, we get usually 1,200 on a month. And also, I heard him was talking a little earlier, the guy in Michigan, about some cars that set. Well, I can also, if I have a car that's short on mileage, and one car that has too much mileage, I can always switch that person to the other vehicle. As Dave was saying, that way we can regulate to make sure each car get the quota for that month. And it also justify us if we need additional cars to show them that we're getting 1,500 a month, and the quota is 833. We really need more cars, so that helps us justify when we put in a bid for more vehicles, which is a good thing. Another thing is when our cars do reach their shelf life, as you would call it, I can pull up a individual, as you would say, like a Carfax, and it will give me all the maintenance history, what was spent on the car, what part, what were the labor, so forth like that, which they also require sometimes doing audits. So it's easy. I can go in reports. I can pull that up for them right away. It breaks down everything because we put it in, but it has a profile on each car. So we can easily do that when time comes up for when they do audits and so forth.
Yeah, that's a very good overview. So I think if you didn't catch the nuance of one of the things he said, and Dave does the same, it not only hands out the keys of the vehicle, in both cases they hand out fuel cards. So you can get a different type of key box that doesn't do that, but it's real handy. You know, you can hand them out, and there's accountability for who used the card and all the transactions. They know who had the card at any given time. So it's a real valuable tool.
Each employee has their own PIN number when they use at the state pump. They have their own PIN number. So Mansfield Oil, who we are under, they have a record of who got gas, how much gas they got, so forth like that. They also, and I can pull that from them if we need a report on that. One of the things about GPS that we really like is, as I said, not just to sit and watch where people go and what people do. Ours update every 5 minutes. It also, we've had situations where people break down, not sure where they at, because it has the satellite view. I can look right at them. I can see exactly where they at. I can call the tow truck or the state. Sometimes I call state because some of those, like on the main highway, we can call them and get assistance to them right away. And we've had people in, like I say, in rural areas. We've had some of our customers, even though we Southern Maryland, Charles County, some of the cases they go far as Pennsylvania, and we can watch them as far as that. So far, we've known we've been able to track them that far. So the combination between the two, it's really great. I mean, you know everything that's happening up to date. Any questions they need, any audits that come up, we can get reports from Agile. We also had Agile come in and give for certain situations that would fit us. They have also worked with us and program for certain set up, a program or window just that would help me out. So it's been a really good system.
Excellent. And this report, I don't know, Ivan or Tony, this one just kind of says you guys do kind of crank through your vehicles, and many days you use them all, and sometimes you use the vehicles more than once.
Oh yeah. Yes, we have up and down periods in the system, but primarily our vehicles are in heavy use daily. I mean, we only have 15, but we do use them quite extensively. And the reporting tool on here really helps us really manage, as Ivan said earlier, justify our vehicles and then justify, getting more vehicles if need be. It tracks our mileage. It helps us with our billing, even though we only have 3 or 4 departments here. But when we look at the usage over time, we break that out per division by a percentage of use. So it helps in that way also.
And one other thing Dave was saying about people that's holding keys and not using it, we have a 60-minute window of cancellation. If their car is not using 60 minutes, it will cancel out. That way someone else will have availability to get their car. And I also can sit there, and if they use it for an hour and a half, come back, check in. I can go in dashboard, look, see who's next. I can fit them right in like that. So sometimes 2 or 3 people may use that same car. So it gives me that capability instead of people just sitting with the car on their desk. It'll let me know if that's going on. It'll give me an alert, so I'll know.
And one last point with the GPS system, that's what kind of got us out of having to have the staff members write down their locations in the system and their mileage, because once they come back through our PIN, it automatically picks them up. So it'll log the mileage for us, and then we know their in destination based on the GPS system. So it shows, them on their destination trip and then on their return trip. So we got a good idea of exactly where they went and how long they were there.
All right, and then benefits, I think you've touched on most of those. So the improved utilization, easy automated collection of mileage through there. Unlike Dave, you're using our system for the preventive maintenance. The after hours access is a big benefit, and then the safety. Kind of intrigued. I love the way that you promote why you're using the GPS. It's not to play Big Brother. It's to increase safety, and it's to help find people. It's to provide a better service to your drivers. So those are considering GPS. If you ever talk to Charles County, they can tell you exactly a great way to sell that to them. So excellent.
Yeah, another thing about Agile, we have 5,000 preventive mileage, so forth, and program set up. So every 5,000 miles, it will flag me that car needs an oil change or so forth like that automatically.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Ivan and Tony, thank you for sharing that from a different perspective, a smaller fleet, but obviously you can see the value that you guys get out of it. That's terrific. So just wanted to wrap up with just a couple of different thoughts about transitioning to an automated system. And I know the question that we got kind of begged the question, well, what did you used to do? Because chances are, if you're going to go from the way you've been doing it forever to a new way, you're going to get, the reaction is going to be the same pretty much everywhere. People are going to be like, wait, what? What do we have to do? But just as soon as they start using the system, they're going to see the benefits. So it is a very positive thing to move over to sharing of vehicles. Share if any few initiatives are going to have a bigger return on investment or a bigger value to your drivers and to your organization. So you're going to provide access to actually more vehicles than just the one that they used to have access to, perhaps more types of vehicles. Through the cost savings, you're going to be able to get newer vehicles. So you're going to be able to provide more feedback to the fleet people about the vehicles you do have. So one of the keys to when you consider the automation is to just be able to articulate the benefits to them and to know why you're doing it. Don't do it for the sake of putting in an automation system. Do it for the benefits that you're hoping to achieve. So define those and then implement, communicate them to your users, get them to buy in, and let them be part of the process of rolling this thing out. So, and absolutely do it right the first time. It's hard to, try to launch a system and have a problem and then convince everybody it's a good thing. So the implementation and transition process are very straightforward. You don't have to have a key box. You can start with just software. You can add as many key boxes as you want. You can add more sites as you want. And I would encourage you, if you're considering this, is to find some other organizations that do what you do and are about the same size and talk to them about what they learned along the way. So by all means, you can contact us and we'll get you in touch with the right people. And let your vendor help communicate your plans to your drivers. So we've managed to implement about maybe 160 different types of organizations. They might be a Charles County with 15 vehicles, and they might be a state of Michigan that does hundreds of reservations per day. So we've quite often we've seen a lot of the types of challenges that those are considering moving to a system like this may have. So the key is to set the goals that you have and achieve them. So I appreciate the unique perspective we got from both organizations today. We did ask for some questions up front, and we got a couple of them. We can stay on for maybe plan on about 5 minutes if you'd like to stay on. And we can take additional questions through your chat window if you have any additional questions. One of them is, can the system automatically calculate charges for each department or for reimbursement from outside agencies? So we've got some types of trips in certain environments might be reimbursed by the state or by some outside agency. So absolutely, the system knows how long you were gone and knows how many miles you went. So based on whatever rules you have for calculating those charges, they are automatically captured. And we can even marry up fuel data with that if you have costs for fuel that you need incorporated in with that. And then that type of information can be spit out at, say, the end of the month or whatever interval you want to do it at in whatever format you need it to be in to go to your outside agency. So absolutely, it can capture all of that. There's no duplicate data entry or anything like that. So one was I didn't wordsmith this one at all, but how to institute costs cuts based on utilization metrics? What metrics can be used when working with a decentralized fleet? And what about self-reported metrics and external audits, what have you? So you saw some examples of the utilization reports in our system. By all means, you can look at utilization reports. You know exactly what type of vehicles that you have and the utilization rates for each one. So if you, for example, have very low utilization rates on pickup trucks and high utilization rates on other vehicles, you can maybe shift the composition of those fleets. And in a decentralized fashion, so like Dave's is very decentralized in many regards, you can have even little individual departments manage their own vehicles, check in and out, and then you can run reports that are specifically just on their particular fleets. So what about self-reported? So I'll give you an example. We dealt with a large university up in New York. They had 230 vehicles, and they were looking at utilization data that said they were only using about half of that. So 230, they're only using about 120. So they said, well, what do we do now? And we said, well, get rid of these 10. And they got rid of 10, and nobody even noticed. And we said, all right, get rid of these 10. So they almost didn't believe it, and they just would get rid of 10 at a time, and nobody caught on to that. So ultimately, they just whittled those numbers down. They kept looking at utilization reports, and they made the adjustments. One thing I would caution you on is if you have cycles in like busy periods when you use vehicles, and then there's slow periods when you use vehicles, don't go making all your cuts when you're looking at utilization numbers in your slow periods. Last one that I have written down here is, can this be implemented in low, I think, income housing sites? If we want to develop a car sharing amenity with residents, what complications are there with electric vehicle motor pools? So it's interesting. There's the person that asked this question's online. I've gotten almost the exact same question from another organization. The type of solution that I think would work best here would be one like Zipcar or some of those car sharing, kind of consumer-based car sharing products. They do make a little bit of a version for fleets. With those, they actually install hardware inside of the vehicle, and you can go check in and check out. And then they can even charge directly back to credit cards for those types of things. So where you may have only one vehicle or two vehicles, the cost of a key box, for example, might not be, if you need to manage the keys, might not be cost justified. But if you get up to, say, 5 vehicles per location, or if you can just check out through a kiosk and the locking the keys in place isn't as critical, by all means, all the solutions we've looked at today are a big benefit. And so I do see a request to switch them over and make someone else the presenter. I don't know that I have the capability, and I even looked at your capability to even enable your voice here, and unfortunately, I don't think I have that capability. So I will follow up with you after this call to try to answer whatever it was you're responding to or you're asking about. So my apologies for that. Were there any other questions? If so, you could answer those ask those via the chat window. And if not, I want to thanks again to Dave and to Tony and to Ivan for sharing your thoughts. And if anybody else would ever like to share their experiences in Fleet, by all means, we'd love to have you join us, whether you use our system or not. We'd like to help communicate the message out there to other people that are in a situation where they're looking to change the way they manage their fleet. Okay, with that said, there is a lot more information if you'd like to just look on the Agile Fleet website. Again, they're not specific to our solution, but how do you roll something like this out? What are the things you need to consider? How to use utilization metrics? If you look on the agilefleet.com website, hopefully there's resources there that you'll find will be useful for looking at this. And then by all means, get in touch with us. There are many buttons on our website to contact us. We're more than happy to help you with some of the challenges you might be having. All right, with that said, thank you very much for joining today, and we hope to see you next time.